What's going on, ladies and gents? It's your boy Neosynthesis, and I'm coming at you with a video that I think is a little bit overdue. So, I recently released my new tier list for Season 3 of Master Duel. Just kind of before it gets started, I wanted to put out a tier list. And this ranking apparently was very controversial, this Prankkids ranking. Now, I had Prankkids in the exact same slot a month ago, and nobody cared at all. That's because objectively, this is where Prankkids belongs. And honestly, I feel like Prankkids really belongs right here. This deck has almost no bite to it. I've never lost to Prankkids before. I've never even gotten close to losing to Prankkids before. Their effects are pretty bad. And honestly, this deck just cannot compete with stuff like VFD, like the Pendulum Magician FTK, even Shadal, Rongo Miniad. It just... There's no bite to this deck. There's nothing you can do in Prankkids turn 1 that scares me when I'm playing one of these decks, one of these actually good decks. VFD is just going to make Prankkids scoop. A Herald of Ultimateness with 6 negates, that's a scoop. A strong Bird Up board, that's a scoop. Bird Up will win going second, Drytron will win going second, Virtual World will win going second, because it's not like they're ever getting to set up an unfair card. And a lot of people were telling me that this deck was actually good. And I see that it's here, right on this 5th right here. And it's got 2 first places, right, with the same guy, this Bahu guy, who keeps just, running these anytime tournaments. But if you look at the deck, and you look at the extra deck, and just all of it, all encompassing, there's no first turn board that you can make with Prankkids that I'm scared of. First of all, this card's limited, this Bow Wow Bark, but, I honestly cannot tell, or it's not limited, actually, I thought it was. Oh, no, it's, bugged. It says this is limited, but it's totally awesome. Actually limited? I don't think it is. Maybe it is. That's crazy. Because I thought Prankkids had a limited card. But either way, that's here nor there. I just don't think that the deck, like the boss, Battle Butler, you contribute this card, destroy a monster your opponent controls. This is going to get negated a lot. And VFD, you can't even activate it. Eldritch, you can't destroy them. Drytron is 100% negating this. They have Orange Light and they have Ultimateness. So... trying to act like that this Prankkids deck is representative of the best decks in the format is really laughable. I have some decks that are rated higher in my view than Prankkids are, even though they're the 5th most represented. And I'm going to explain that a little bit. So if you kind of look at some of the other decks, so Eldritch obviously is an exception to the rule. It's just like a ladder monster, so it's way better on the ladder because it's so easy to play and you can get tons and tons of games in without burning yourself out. But you start looking at the other decks, and so like I said, there is this one guy, right, this Bahu 2 guy who's just spamming this Prankkids deck. But aside from that, this deck has had, we can extend this. This deck has not really had much support. You look at the last month tournament meta, right? That's what I'm interested in. And they are, the 5th deck on the list, or the 6th deck on the list. But you can't find much real success with this deck, aside from this one Bahu player, and then there's this as well. But this is not every tournament is equal, right? I don't know how many players were in this tournament. I don't know what the field was looking like. But it's important to realize that not every deck is exactly, not every tournament is exactly the same, rather. So, when you're looking at tournament decks, you see that the top 4 decks, the top 4 decks, they're completely unfair. Top 5 decks, completely unfair. Zodiac Tri-Brigade is almost tier 0, so there's almost no reason to make a tier list at all, because of just how powerful this deck is. It's not even that it's so powerful, it's that it's insanely consistent. It almost will never brick. It has play in almost every situation, And generally, yeah, like a format where Dryden and Zeus are both limited, are both legal, I mean, and you still have some Zoo, it's gonna be hard for a deck like Prankkids to live, because we can just, because like the whole idea of Prankkids is like tag out, tag in, but with when you're playing Zeus, you just blow everything up, and none of it matters, right? I mean, none of it matters. That's the reality of it. So the other major thing is that the format has not changed whatsoever, guys. We are living in a very, very stale, stagnant format. And as you guys can see, it really crowds everything out. Like, all of these decks are really, really, really getting pushed out. But, you do look at some of the stuff like the Zodiac deck. Like, I'm very partial to the Zodiac current format. This isn't right, because I know that there's been way more. So, and this is the other thing when you look at this thing. So I've gone through tournaments that I actually think are good tournaments before, and I've seen what the results are, which is heavily influencing what I feel is actually a good deck. But some of the stuff gets removed. Like some of the deck lists get removed by the request of the people or whatever. So this list is actually very incomplete, because a lot of the deck lists that I was looking at when creating my other decks, they aren't here anymore. And those were winning like these first time. Like some of these tournaments are not very good. Like these are anytime tournaments, so they have these a few times a month. And look, the most recent anytime tournament was won by this Bahu guy. But I don't know what was in the tournament with him. Right? Like, I have no idea what was the field for that anytime. And regardless of what the field was, I personally think that Prankkids have almost no venom, no punch. I've played a ton of games against Prankkids, so it's quite odd for all the people who are saying, oh, you clearly have no idea what you're talking about. I think I have 500 hours in Master Duel, and most of that time has been played in Platinum. So perhaps you guys should do some introspection to see if maybe it's you guys who really have no idea what a good deck is. And the worst part is that because Master Duel is like a game that's getting almost no support, and Konami is just completely letting it die, you'll never get to play against a good player on Master Duel, because they're so rare. I think I've played maybe one or two actual good players on Master Duel, right, that I didn't match up with myself knowing from paper. That's because really good players have no reason to play Master Duel. So a lot of the times you guys are getting a very false sense of what the meta is, or a very false sense of how a deck should be played, or you yourself are most likely playing bad. And obviously I talk about this in all my videos. You're not always going to be able to play perfectly, but you need to keep in mind that the people on Master Duel, the skill level from a paper player to a Master Duel player, the average difference in skill level is humongous. Paper players don't make nearly as many mistakes. There is no higher ranking in this game. That is the problem. Platinum 1 is a prison. People want to surrender to get people into it. Really, this is just me like a cry for help on Master Duel, because for whatever reason, I think people who know about the TCG are like, oh, I keep seeing videos about Prankkids. Oh, so good, so good. In the TCG, they're kind of good. But it's only because there's a giant power vacuum, right? Like, we don't have Black Dragon, we don't have VFD, we don't have Eva, so Herald of Ultimateness is not really viable. Zodiac is dead because we don't have Trident. Tri-Brigade, we have a limitation on Tenki as well, so that deck is significantly weaker. And then there's the Adventure Engine too that goes into the PK deck the Prankkids deck, because there is PK as well on this list, that makes it a lot more consistent and a lot better. But it still would not be as good, because simply put, the good things in this format that exist are so good that I just feel like Prankkids cannot compete. Like, when you make the board when you make a bird up board, turn 1, and you pass back to Prankkids, like, they just lose. They can't really play the game. You know, you have a banish and a couple Omni Negates, or you've got your Wind statue. They're just going to lose. And there's not very many people playing this deck on Master Duel because it's not fun. But as this format continues to get more and more stale, we're going to see more and more players playing more and more degenerate things. This is the next deck that's going to be insanely degenerate. And I know I have to go back just a little bit to find the first place deck, but this guy could win a lot of these tournaments like this. This danger, BA, PK, make Rongo Miniad and make your opponent cry. This is a very viable strategy, guys. And honestly, pretty good. Better than a lot of decks. Like, Prankkids cannot make a board this good. That's what I'm trying to express here, is that I just don't think that the power of the heights of the power of Prankkids is worth playing in this format. It's really bad. It's really bad. Like, you're never ending on a board that's making people instantaneously scoop. Whereas, you know, all the other top decks that I kind of listed in here, like, these guys all have ways to make your opponent scoop. This is going to make your opponent scoop. This is going to make your opponent scoop. This is going to make your opponent scoop. This, your opponent doesn't even get a chance to scoop. You burn them out. This your opponent's going to scoop. This is better than anything Prankkids can do, setting skill drain and a bunch of back row. Sky Striker is, in my opinion, a better version of what Prankkids wishes it was, because this deck actually has tons of access to really powerful spell cards, and it also just does the tagging out thing better, in my opinion. And Ray is just a better card than any of the cards in the Prankkid deck. The Salamangreat deck, I feel like for whatever reason this deck's got a very, very, very deep, it can run for a long time. Its grind game is like unmatched. So that's why I think Salamangreat belongs higher on the list than Prankkids. Now, I was trying to be nice as well. I was trying to say, oh, Prankkids maybe is the very top C tier, but this deck really is bad. It belongs in C tier, so I won't move it to the D tier and trigger too many people, but in my heart of hearts, it belongs, you know, if there was another tier down here for just like, don't play this. I mean, this is pretty much the line of don't play this. Like, if you have one deck, don't play any decks below B tier. And even if I put Prankkids in B tier, don't invest your money in this. Invest your money in this, because this is completely broken and unfair, and you'll get to the higher ranks, which, you know, it seems like some of you guys are having trouble doing. It's so easy to get to the higher ranks in this game, for me at least, that I have completely stopped playing. I don't feel a need, I don't feel a want to play this game. Master Duel needs to add ranks so that we can actually get a competitive experience in higher elo, and it needs to, yeah, that's really it, right? Because then, you know, you guys can just play Prankkids in your platinum or in your gold, and you know, it's fun, it's cool. That's what Konami wants, but there needs to be a diamond tier perhaps where we can play these, and maybe like a 500 player, like, you know, challenger elo as well, where we can really just practice matchups against these and really tech our decks out, and you know, maybe a best of 3 format or something, Konami. So as much as I want to make this all about you guys, it's obviously not. It is kind of funny that the deck gets a lot better than TCG, and everybody's opinion on it changes like wildly. But the deck belongs here, guys. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's not that good, and it's not because the deck itself has lost anything, I guess. The deck itself doesn't really have the power, but I think I'm more scared of anything that any deck in this tier can do than this deck. Like, I just feel like this is worse than like what a full power ABC deck would be like. Or like a full power Altergeist deck. Right? Because some of these cards have limitations on them. So it's really hard for me to consider this deck a threat. And that's really the last thing I'm going to say about it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed my little rant here. Prankkids are not good. And that's the last thing I'm going to say about it. I'm just gonna start ignoring Prankkid comments. So, all right, guys. It's been your boy Neosynthesis. Peace.